So let this serve as part two of the Ford F-750 haul truck series. In the first one, let me begin by explaining to you. In the title of this thing, you were going to see where I had issues, and I thought they might have been insurmountable issues with building this truck the way that I wanted to build it. And that's what this video is going to be about. But this introductory segment needs to serve a couple of purposes. First of all, in the first segment, I told you that I had doubts about the registration and getting it titled in New York State. I am not 100% sure, but I'm 90% sure that that's not going to be an issue. I went to the DMV, and a supervisor at the DMV there was very helpful to me. She said there's actually some processes in New York State to deal with old fire trucks and getting them registered, because old fire trucks never had to be I have no idea what that is. Let me turn you off for a minute. Okay, so it was a guy pulling cable wire on the outside of the building. Where I left off was there's a process in New York State for registering old fire trucks. Old fire trucks never had to be titled or registered in New York State, and now they do, so it's not an issue anymore. But there's a process of getting older ones registered. Now, what she told me is if I wanted to register it as a historic vehicle, I could do so right then. But otherwise, I have to, there's a process that I've got to go through. What I've got to do is send a certified letter, return receipt requested, to the fire department, asking them for proof of ownership of the fire truck to begin with. And once I get that, I just have to submit that paperwork with a couple of forms, and they will provide me with a title for the truck. Otherwise, if the fire department doesn't have it or does not respond to me, then I have to post the $50 bond with the motor vehicle department, and they will, in fact, get a title for me. But regardless of that point, I know that I can get a title and get the truck registered. So there's that. The other issue was in the first video, I told you that this was a 1971. Well, in fact, it turns out that it's not a 1971. I was told that, but in going through the vehicle, I found some papers on the build and transfer of this truck to Ward LaFrance in Elmira, New York. And that's kind of ironic because I grew up not far from Elmira in a little town called Horseheads, New York. But anyways, the truck was made in February 1974. So there's those two things, those 2 points. So the video is not about either one of them issues. It's about a new problem and my resolution of it. I'm also going to throw a little segment. I have some segments of me working on the truck or removing some stuff, and I'm not going to post that, but I will show you that board that you probably see in the background. It's got cardboard screwed onto it and writing on it. I'll show you that and what the issue was that I had and whether I got it resolved or not. I'm just going to shoot a brief shot of this. This is kind of like my version of a whiteboard that I put up here kind of next to the truck. I just used pieces of cardboard, and what I've done is kind of list components on the truck: engine, transmission, rear end, front axle, tires, and rims. And over on this one is electric body frame, sleeper, and fuel system. And what I'm going to do is kind of put things that need to be done, questions that I have on certain things, things like that. Now, what I just got through, there's a guy that I know owns a diesel repair shop, and I went down and kind of picked his brain about fuel tanks, transmissions, basic things, and he gave me a couple leads on some things, and he's probably going to be my go-to guy for picking up some parts. No, not big parts. I've got a truck salvage yard that I will be dealing with probably for the axles, transmissions. He said fuel tanks I could probably get from that guy also. But I will be going to this guy because I want to give him business. He's been very helpful. He's done work on my truck in the past, and he's excellent mechanic, him and his brother. And I will try and be throwing business their way too to pick up some parts. So I just kind of wanted to show you how I had it laid out. I'm going to list things for questions and things that need to be done, and then just cross them out as they get done or the questions get resolved. So just to kind of show you guys what I had done. So at every time in a project, there's a point where you start second guessing yourself. And I'm at that point right now. When I looked at this truck, and know that I looked at a Chevy C60 before I looked at this truck, and that engine compartment was a lot smaller. This engine compartment is very wide, and I thought it was very long. Now that radiator does stick out quite a ways away from the actual radiator cowling, but here's what the issue is. I wanted to put an 8.3 Cummins in this thing, and from the back of the head to the front of the fan blade, and as you can see, I have that tape measure back into the little part of the recess. Now that recess is tapered down, so it's in the high part of the recess, but it's back there. And here's what we have up front. That Cummins engine is 43 inches long from the back of the head to the front of the fan blade. Doesn't look like I have enough room. Now, I'm just not going to give up on the project right now. I'm going to think about it and figure out what I can do to maybe make it work. My other option is I might be able to put a smaller Cummins engine in it. Now, if I went mechanical, it would have to be a 5.9, and if I went electric, I could go up to 6.7. But that is, if I went to a 6.7 and electric, I'm probably going to pay a hell of a lot more money for that thing than I would have paid for an 8.3, and I'm definitely not going to get the torque power out of the 6.7 that I would have the 8.3. So I have to look at this and figure out what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to talk to some people, see if they have any suggestions, and I'll go from there. Okay, so let me just interject this here. At this point in time, I was kind of bummed about this whole thing. I really had planned on the larger displacement Cummins engine in this thing. I wanted the horsepower and torque out of a larger engine to pull larger loads, hills, stuff like that. So I had thought of a lot of things. I really didn't want to go to a smaller Cummins engine, which would fit in here, the 5.9 or 6.7. The 5.9 is just too small. Granted, you would be able to turn it up and get a lot more horsepower out of it and torque out of it, but it really would never be big enough to pull large loads, large hills, large loads going up hills, or wind load factors on a larger truck, or the weight of a larger truck. So I thought of a couple of other things. You know, I kind of looked at Detroit engines. I kind of to see if there was any of them that had horsepower, torque, larger displacement that was smaller than the Cummins engine, and they were not. I could not find anything. So I started thinking about what was in the truck to begin with if it was equipped with a diesel engine. And it would have been equipped with a CAT 3208. Now that engine is a V8 engine. V8 engine kind of similar to the gas engine that's in here, except it was a fairly large engine. The displacement was over 10 liters. So it was a large engine, but there was issues with it. It's hard to get parts for, and it has a reliability problem, life expectancy problem, a very well noted one. And besides that, it does not, for the size of the engine, over 10 liters, does not put out a lot of horsepower and torque. So that was kind of out of the question. So that's kind of where I tried to get my thinking cap on, and we'll go from there, go from here there. Okay, so this is the next morning from the clip that I just showed you. And in that clip I talked about the issue with the engine not fitting in this compartment. During the middle of the night last night, I kind of woke up and had this idea. There's a lot of people that do that. I'm not sure if you guys do it, but it happens to me all the time. And it used to happen to me during when I was working before I retired. I would wake up in the middle of the night and have an epiphany about something that needed to be done on a job or how to do it or something like that. Well, it happened to me again last night. I was thinking, because that engine is 43 inches long from the back of the block to the front of the fan on the engine, 43 inches puts you right there. So here was my thought. What if I took that radiator out of there? Now, I could always probably find a smaller radiator that would fit in between this, let's call it the grill support structure, and the grill itself. I could probably find a radiator that would fit down in there, but I also have to get an intercooler in here. So here was my idea. Take the radiator out of there, find a intercooler that would fit in here, and put the radiator in the back with fans on it. So what I would do is pipe the radiator back to behind the sleeper and make an area back there that I could get some electronic fans in, kind of hold it into a some kind of a housing that might like draw air up in from the bottom and blow it out through what I probably am going to put a headache right back there for chains and chain binders. So that was kind of my thought about the issue. So I've got to kind of run it by some people, see what they think about it, see if they think I would get enough cooling on the engine by doing that. I absolutely would be probably no issues in the winter time, but in like hot days in the summertime, would I be able to get enough cooling through the radiator and the long runs that it would be back up to the engine for the supply and return off of the radiator? So maybe you guys have got some ideas and comments on it, but here, that was kind of my idea. And again, this is being taped before I talk to anybody about it. So I'm going to run it past a couple of people that I know that's probably got a lot more knowledge on that kind of thing than I would have. So leave your thoughts and comments on it. I'm not sure. There might be subsequent videos before I release this today discussing what I have found out when I talk to other people. But I'll bring you back. So back on, in the last video I told you about my idea of eliminating the radiator up in front and relocating it to the back with some kind of electric fans on it. That idea is a go. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to be doing is pulling the truck probably forward a little bit up into this area so that it has a permanent spot and I'm not over that drain grate to be able to work on from front to back. So it's a go. What I'm going to start doing is removing the grill, the lights and radiator and everything out of there, pulling the engine. I'm going to pull the transmission out at the same time because I'm probably going to be going to a different transmission. So it's a go. That way I don't have to modify the somebody thought of it was cutting out that firewall, making a little dog coop in there and in the firewall and pulling it back. And I had actually thought of that, but I really didn't want to do it because, and I don't know whether you're going to be able to see this or if it's too dark. Let me shut you off and bring you back when I've got more light. The reason I didn't want to go with the dog coop idea is because there's not a lot of room in this cab to begin with. Even one of the guys I was just talking to, this bench seat sets up on a little bit of a hump. Now, I might actually have to lower that hump to get the air ride seats into this cab. But I'll address that issue with you or about that when I get to it. I just, again, there's not a lot of room in this in the cab, and I didn't want to create a big dog coop in there to compensate for that engine. So we're back on. I'll bring you back. This will probably be the end of this segment, but I'll bring you back. I don't know how quickly this is going to progress. I've got a haul that I've got to make. I'm filming this on Friday, the Friday that it'll be published, and I've got a haul. I've got to pick up an excavator on Monday and take it to New Hampshire on Tuesday. So, but I'll bring you back.